everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my process for mass making journals for my monthly Patreon mail club, and I will be walking you guys through each of the steps. I'll do kind of an overview of how I did these journal covers, but you guys can go back and watch the live where I experimented with ways to make the covers. I'll also be going through picking all of the papers, prepping the papers, sewing them into the journals, all of that good stuff. I did want to remind you guys that it is not too late to sign up to receive one of these journals. I just went through, made sure that I modified my open spots to include the spots that I have available. I think I have both my mini journal and my larger journal kit tier open with 1 or 2 spots each. Without further ado, let's get into it. So here is the journal. I laid some out because they're all slightly different but very similar. I used tissue paper that was heat and bonded to a piece of scrapbook paper that had some scraps from a Peter Rabbit book. They are not all the original tale of Peter Rabbit. I also included some adventures of Peter Rabbit and his friends. And then I heat and bonded this sheet on. I stamped out this really cute rabbit stamp onto some fabric. Let me see if I have these stamps out because they are so precious and I am using them in a lot of mail this month. Here they are. I'm using these stamps on my envelopes, my journal covers, some stamped tags for you guys, etc. I really like the quality of these. And then I sewed around it. I did include a piece of this mint green, light green canvas type fabric in the background. I tore it because I really like the edges you get from that, and every journal cover will be different just based on placement, but I'll show you guys a couple so you can see. This one's down at the bottom so that I could preserve this little farm stand. We got this one more towards the middle. There's just a ton of these. I am making 20 this month, which blows my mind to be making so many. But I do really love these and wanted to make sure that if you guys were interested, you could sign up for one of them. I don't have a lot of time, so this might be filmed in a couple different bursts as I have time throughout my day. I'm going to go ahead and move these off to the side. And next step, once I've completed all of my journal covers, the next step is to choose the pages that will actually be going into the journal covers. I have a little bit of a formula that I follow. So I like to include a page from a book that goes with that monthly theme. I'm realizing that I brought out the wrong stack. I brought out the stack that will be going in my paper packs. So I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. So I have the pages here. I am including a Peter Rabbit page in every journal, but I didn't quite have enough of what I wanted, so I saved these end pages from, I think it's this book, Further Adventures, yeah, of Peter Rabbit. I saved the end pages. This one is a little bit stained, but I think that's okay for a junk journal. And I'm going to be folding them in half to include in my journals, in 2 of them. And this one. And then the rest of my journals will be getting a page from this book. I've already taken the book apart, and I'm going to be using the picture pages folded in half like this so that you can see the picture and some text on the other half. I went through and they all look like they'll be pretty cute folded in half. Like here you'll see him, here you'll see Peter Rabbit. The trims, tops and bottoms of these text pages are super cute. So I'm just gonna go through and prepare these pages by tearing them apart. I prefer to tear because I think it adds a really cute look to the page, and it goes well in a junk journal. Look at how cute he is. And getting the boot, my all-time favorite illustration. Running away from Mr. McGregor. When I use book pages, I always have to consider the size of my pages. The journals I make are roughly A5 size, so book pages, if I didn't tear them apart, I would have to cut off this edge. Sometimes I do that if I want to preserve more of the image. Sometimes, like this month, I realized that folding it and having a smaller page would look just as good and have less waste. So that's what I'm doing this month. I don't mind personally if pages are bigger, smaller, different sizes, lined up differently in my journals. That doesn't bother me, so. And then for the second book type page in my journals, I am going to go ahead and use a page from a gardening book that I have. When I think of Peter Rabbit, I'm always thinking about what a scoundrel he is, stealing all the veggies from Mr. McGregor's garden. And I just so happen to have a couple copies of this book. I bought it because I'm doing a collab with Jessica from Paper Terrace, and I'm making these super cute over the page pockets. Let me show you. If this is your junk journal page, this just slips right over, and then there's tag, pockets, lots of pockets, writing space, and another pocket back here. So I purchased a couple different books for these. This isn't the main type of page I'm using for them, but I did really like the pages, so I am using some of those. If you guys want to check her out, we're collabing in May, so feel free to grab a spot. I'll also be making some things from my Etsy shop. The theme I'm doing with her is a vintage fruit theme, which leaves me with a bunch of really cool vegetable pages. So I'm going to be pulling out the veggie pages. I have carrots, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli, beets, all of these veggies from the Peter Rabbit book. Let me show you guys. I think, not finding the page, but this one tells us there's cucumbers, cabbages, potatoes. We know there's carrots because he notoriously is eating the carrots. And I think we see a bunch of other greens and stuff, so I thought this would be a really fun one. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, pull out enough pages for a plant or vegetable page in each journal, and I'll be right back. All right, I now have my 20 vegetable pages that are going to be going in these Peter Rabbit journals. I've got my book pages. Now I think I forgot to say that my mini journals are 8 pages. So when you fold them, that's about 16 pages or 32 pages front and back. I do normally include like an envelope in that. So, but overall, we're trying to get to 7 or 8 pages to start, because all my small journals and my larger journals have the same base, and then I just add extra pages for my large journals. So far we have 2 book pages. Next, we are ready for a fun page. This month, I thought I would use these doily pages for my fun page. So I'm going to go ahead and count out 20 of these, and then these just get folded into my signature like so. I was going to count these on camera, but I forget that these stick together. So I will be right back. All right, I've got my doily pages counted. Next up, I know that I like to include a coffee or tea dyed paper. So I brought over my big stack. I have to decide what kind of paper I'm going for. I do have, if you've seen my dyeing videos, you've probably seen the different types of papers I dye. I've got these scrapbook paper ones, which I think would be really cute. I might hold off on those and include them in my large journal. And then I've just got a ton of those. I've got these dyed pages that have stencils on them. I might see if I have enough of these stencil pages to include. 2. Those are flower stencil pages, which I included in Edith Holden. I'm going to try to go for these mandala pages. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My last clip cut off because my timer went off, but I'll show you guys really quickly that I did end up grabbing all 20 of these coffee and tea dyed pages, and I did also pick out 13 of these for my larger journal. I'm setting them off to the side, and then we'll see what else we need. for these. Next up, right before I go ahead and do other things and then come back later, I'm going to show you guys my bookshelf that has all of my lined ledger fun type of papers for journaling, and we'll pick a couple out to go in these journals. All right, we are at my really messy bookshelf now. We need to pick about 3 of these pages. Right off the bat, I want to do this peachy color from this Astro Brights pack. I also want to do some lined paper, so I'm seeing which color I like. I think I'm going to go with this one. And then I've got this paper that really reminds me of like a carrot color, so I'm going to pick that one. I'm going to grab this one once I have 2 hands available. And then part of me, so I've got this like elementary school writing paper for handwriting. I like that one. I've also got I've got some like grid paper, and I've got some vintage notebook paper. Let me go ahead and open this up. It looks something like this. I would probably use the blank pages, not the ones with text on them. I should also have vintage ledger paper. We're in my closet, so doing my best to film. This, you can't tell, but it's like a pale yellow. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do this one. And then I do have my music pages here. Do I want to include a music paper? That might be a good idea for my large journals. So I'm deciding now for all of my journals. I'm going to do this peach paper. I'm going to do a page from this computation notebook from, what is that, 1983. I'm going to do this lined paper, and then I'll pick out an envelope. All right, guys, it is now much later in the day. I am all done with work, so I am going to continue working on these with a much messier desk and worse lighting, but that's okay. I have picked out a bunch of envelopes. These I like to vary, so I've got like a glassine bag, a couple different paper bags, normal envelope, these clasp envelopes, and then just some normal craft envelopes. I like to have these in the center of my signature when they are envelopes like this, because then I can just sew right through the center. You have this to go into. If you wanted to, you could seal it, which would hide the strings, and then you just cut off either the side or the top to use as a pocket. These I will usually cut open the side and then include them in my signature, so you end up with 2 pockets and then one over here. I'll do the same with these, just cut right here, fold them in half, and put them in my signature. All right, I have also counted out all of the pages I need. So again, we have ledger paper, we have notebook filler paper, this orange lined paper that would be right side up in the signature, and then this one would give you a sideways line. I really like including things like this with different directions. And then this one's obviously a ledger. I think that adds a lot. And then we have just this colored printer paper. our book pages and our coffee dyed paper and our doily. So next step is to cut these pages down to size. My journals are A5, so I cut my papers down to 8 1/4 by 11 inches. Some of these are already that size or smaller, so I'll go ahead and measure them, see how they're looking. This one is larger than 11 inches across, so what I'll do, sometimes I'll fold them first and then cut them so they're the same. But for this one, I'm thinking of doing a little fold out. I'll see about how much I need to fold in. About 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do instead of cutting it is fold it right along the line formed by the solid piece. And then when I fold them to go into the signature, I'll fold them like this, so that this page has a little fold out option. You can also use it as a pocket, as a tuck, just to fold out to right under and then close it up, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and fold all of these in. I will usually trim my pages down, but if I don't, I will do something like this, turning them into a pocket or tuck. And that's a big tip I have for you guys, to just use the types of pages you have to your advantage. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to go ahead and finish these, but I think you guys kind of get the idea. Maybe I'll fold one in the camera view. Of course, then I get a sticky one. So I have this, and then I just fold the flap right in. Alright, I have folded the flip, and then the final step I'm going to do in order to get these all ready to go into my signatures is I'm going to line them up as good as I can, as perfectly as I can, and then I'm going to take the entire stack and fold it in half. I'm not getting a perfect crease on these when I do it this way, but you'll see we kind of get a nice good edge, and then I just fold this and then I set them aside because I will perfect this when it comes to putting it in my signature. And next up, I have my tea dyed pages. These are too large, so I take about 4 pages at a time and then cut them down to 11. These are already 11 inches wide, so I will cut them to 8 1/4 on the other direction. I like to do slightly smaller than 8 1/4 because that will just make my journals line up a little bit better. And then move on. I'm doing the same to all of them. You guys probably aren't making as many journals as I am. You could be, especially if you're doing them for like a craft fair or your own like Etsy. You could, once you cut them, then roughly fold them in half so that they're ready to go for the next step. And this would also work if you were doing a journal with like all coffee dyed paper or all pages of the same size, if you're just cutting them all at once. I'm just going to continue doing this to the rest of my pages. A lot of repetition here when making 20 similar journals. But please scale this down to what you're making or you're doing. I do find it really hard to film this process just because there's so much repetition. I'm also zoning out for a lot of this. It's been a long day, and I find that this repetitive work really helps. It's quite relaxing, especially if you aren't filming it and can just play a video or TV show in the background. This is one where I catch up on most of my shows, or just watch them, since I don't watch a lot of shows that are currently coming out. But I'm gonna go ahead and pause you guys, and I'll be back when the rest of my pages are ready to go. Okay, I am on to my last little bundle of pages that I'm cutting down, and then we will move on to collating, or like organizing our pages into a signature. My journals are going to be just one signature journals. If you're doing multiple signatures, now is going to be the time to decide how many signatures you want and organize those together in order to get them ready to be sewn into your journal cover. I am saving all of these scraps. I like to use my paper punches to make like labels and fun little tabs and stuff with my scraps. Okay, so let me see if I can show you guys how we're looking. I've got all of my little bundles of paper cut down to size and folded. Let's get this out of the way. I am making 7 mini journals, and these are the pages for the mini journals. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out what order I would like these in. Generally, I'll pick a fun first page because it's what you see right when you open up the journal. I think we'll start with Peter Rabbit, and then I kind of fan these out to see what order they will go in. And don't forget that we have our envelopes for the inside. Okay, so I'm gonna start with this. I think once we get inside, I'm gonna want the doily as our next page. And then I'm gonna find one of these fun colored pages that goes well with the doily. I'm liking this carrot colored page. After that, I guess it could be more of like a pinkish red page. after that, I'm going to go for, I'm feeling this gardening page, but I'm not sure if that's too soon. But I could do this. Let me see if you guys can see. So we have gardening page, or I could do my coffee guide page. And then gardening. And then I kind of like the look of the ledger with it. Followed by this orange page, lined paper, and then envelope in the center. I did forget to prep my envelopes, so let me go ahead and prep 7 really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For these, I'm just going to use my trimmer to cut as close to this end as possible. Make sure I hold it, and then that opens this up to be a fun little pocket. I am going to go ahead and use a paper punch to give us a thumb hole so that you can see that it's a pocket when you're going through the journal. I'm going to do that for all of these. Beautiful. I do have to double check that these envelopes, I think what I'm going to do, I was going to double check to see if they are the right size, but I think what I'm actually going to do is just cut off this flap because it is kind of sticky and do it like this. I am realizing that with this metal piece, these will have to go in my larger journals just so that they can be mailed as a package. So I will go ahead and prep these and then set them aside for my large journals. These don't need to be cut, so they can just be moved aside, and then I can grab 2 more envelopes to go into these. I will go ahead and do the thumb holes. Sorry if you can hear my dogs. I am going to have to pause in just a second, but I want to make sure I finish my thought. Alright, we are now ready to bundle up all of my pages. I'm gonna make sure I have room. I'm making 7 journals in this size, so I'm going to lay out 7 piles. And what I would do is, starting with the innermost page, which is going to be our envelopes, I'm going to lay them on the table. Let me scoot you guys down, because I think you guys are missing a lot of what I am doing. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I will continue on with my pages. In the orientation that I plan on having them. So if it matters, make sure that they are still facing the correct direction. And then the rest of this page will be put off to the side. We'll continue on. The reason I do it this way is because I feel that this allows me to make the journals much faster. Once I have my journals cut to size, it probably only takes me 2 or 3 hours or my journal pages, it probably only takes me 2 or 3 hours to lay out all of my pages, put them into their covers, and sew them in, even if I am making 20 journals like I am today. Next we have our veggie pages. It is, normally I would have a much larger work surface. That I will say that also helps a lot, is if you have enough room to lay these out. So when I do my 13 large journals, I will definitely lay these out on my other table so that all 13 fit, and I can do these all at once. I'm just crisping up those folds and continuing with my piles. All right, my stacks are all ready. The next step is going to be to grab your journal cover and then pop the pages in there exactly how you want to sew them in. And then you have your super cute journal. You just need to sew it in now. So I'll do a quick flip through before I do the rest, just to make sure I'm happy with the pages in here. This is kind of the last chance for me to change things around. But I am pretty happy with it. And then we just have all of our pages in there. A little flip. And our page. Okay, I am happy with that. So I'm going to set this aside and do this to the rest of our pages. I'll go ahead and do one more on video just because I wanted to ask you guys a question. I originally was planning to do this on a live, but I thought it might get boring to watch maybe like a 2 to 3 hour live of me just putting together my journals. We could definitely make it fun. We could have some questions. I could maybe put together a playlist that I could have. I could schedule it ahead of time so that you guys can plan for it and also have your own craft to do with me. I'm just not sure if anyone would be interested in that, so feel free to let me know down below if you would join me on a live where all we did was assemble, prep our pages, cut them down, make our journals. And I have to think about the kind of prep work I would do ahead of time. I might go ahead and pick pages, or maybe just pull out the types of pages I'm thinking so that I don't spend too much time going through my bookshelf of pages. And also keep in mind that today I am just showing you parts of what this process looks like, and I'm just doing the small journals. So if I were to do the full process, it would be much longer. I'm going to finish these up and I will be right back. All right, it has been a couple minutes and now we have all of our journals ready to be sewn. I did want to show you guys what I use for this step. So first of all, I have this piece of old packaging, probably from a TV or something that we got. It's nice and sturdy. I use it to stab my tool through when I'm binding, just to make sure I don't damage my desk. You will need one of these guys or some sort of pokey tool. The name of this is evading my brain right now, but it's late, so I will carry on. You will also need a needle. Let me grab mine. I've got it in here with all my thread. A needle with a large eye. I got these along with other supplies all in a listing from Amazon. It was like $8 for a bunch of threads, and I think 2 of these, a couple different needles. So you'll need those, and then you'll need something to bind it with, of course. I use embroidery thread most of the time for these monthly journals. I love the color options we have, and this is what I'm going to use today. So what I do is I hold up my journal and then find a color that I think goes well with it. I really like this one. And when I'm making 20, I know that I'll need more than one. I do like this one, but it looks like I only have enough for maybe one journal, so I'll pull it out and then pull out a third color. I've got a ton more, but because I do cross stitch, but these are the ones that I know are like mislabeled or won't be used in cross stitch, so I like these. But you can also just purchase some new embroidery. I'm using what I have because I love crafting in that way. You can also use something like this. It's a crochet thread. I've never used it to bind, but it is, let me see if I can give you a good shot. These embroidery threads are used. It is thinner than embroidery thread by just a touch. They look almost identical on camera. I use these for crocheting flowers and stuff, and you can buy a full roll for not that expensive. Really good option if you'll just need like one color to bind all of them. You can also use waxed linen thread. This one came with my needle and pokey tool. It is thinner than my crochet thread, and I don't like that. I like using thick thread when binding my journals, but it is an option, and I know it's something that a lot of you guys use. I think that's everything I pulled out, but any thin thread will work. You could even use some twine as long as your needle eye is large enough. But of course I'm going to use these. I'll probably start with this one just to get it used up. I'm going to measure out how long it needs to be. I do 2.5 times the length of my spine. I've got some here that had been used for cross stitch, so it's only got 2 of the threads. I'm going to set that aside and then pull a fresh one and hope that I have enough for one journal. So measure 1 time, 2 times, 2.5 times, and then cut. And that's 1. This isn't going to be enough, so I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to measure out 6 more lengths. I like to pre-measure everything to make it as fast as possible. If you do 2.5, it will leave a lot of excess for you to trim and then still leave the strings along. If you are not looking to leave excess, then I think 2 times would probably be enough. I just never do that. I always do the 2.5. So I've got 6 so far. This is 7. And then I'll hold off on doing the other 13. So I've laid those out to the side. Now I'm going to get you guys a good view of what I'm doing. Push these away. I'm going to go ahead and always thread my needle first before I start It is easier to bring it up to your face to thread it, but our eye is nice and big. The eye is going to be the hole. It's nice and big, so not a struggle at all. Next, I'm gonna grab my journal. I do eyeball a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, which I'll show you what that means. I've also made this back when I was first making journals. I actually measured this out using a ruler, and my bone folder is roughly the same size as my journal, not quite, but I used to open up to my center of my signature. I like to push on both sides, make sure that everything is nice and centered, and then I would just lay this on here and then use my tool along those lines to get pretty even spread. I now have made hundreds of these and don't really need the tool anymore. I just eyeball it. So for example, this one I would do roughly center and then on either side of my bag, and I know that that will be close enough binding. Okay, everything's nice and center. What I'm going to do is holding it over my you can use styrofoam, you can use cardboard, a couple layers of cardboard, anything you would like. I just hold everything with one hand, nice and sturdy, stab through exactly where I'm going to sew. I do all 3, and then holding it still, I will grab my needle, go through the center of the center hole, go up to the top one. It should slide right through. If it doesn't, then just take a minute to tap your pages back into place, and then we're gonna go right down to the bottom one. That will give us nice strong binding, and then the final stitch is going to be right back in through the center and making sure that you're on the opposite side of your string. So before I pull through, I'll see that this one's on this side, and then we've got this, and my needle is coming through the other side. That's just to make sure that when you tie your knot, you are tying it right around that center. I grab my strings and then adjust them so that my strings are nice and centered, and then you knot it once, making sure your string is grabbed in that knot, and then you knot it a second time. If you are worried about this coming apart, you could do a dab of glue. I personally have never been worried about that. I'm going to pull the strings down to the bottom and trim them the same size, and then you are left with these. If you want to trim them close, feel free to. I like to leave them long because I put charms on the ends of these sometimes. I think that looks the best. All right, so now we have our nice and tightly bound journal. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. I will be binding my other 6 small journals and then grabbing more pages so that I can bind my larger journals, and so on and so forth. Thank you guys so much for watching this process, even if it is a little chaotic and my brain has clocked out for the day, but I hope that you guys got something from this. Make sure I have everything here. I will, like I said, I did open up spots to match what I currently have available. So I've got, I think, one small journal, one or two large journal kit spaces available. I do have 2 mini junk journal spots open, or mini snail mail, sorry. And that will be a folio with lots of ephemera, 1 handmade item, a Peter Rabbit postcard, and I used my extra tissue paper to make the folio. I haven't folded these, added pockets, sewn them together yet. That will be a project for tomorrow, but I do have them all my bases made. I have 2 of those. My postcard tier has tons of spots, and then paper tier, I think I have a couple spots open as well. Go ahead and check on my Patreon. Any spots that are left over or don't sell by the end of the month, I will place those up on my Etsy for a couple extra bucks. So there is an incentive to buy it on Patreon during the month, and then excess just goes on to my Etsy store. I think my next video out will be a mass make of the item I am making to go into Paper Terrace's fruit theme in May. I've been cutting out all of my bases. I think I have some here to show you. I'll be making those over the pocket flips that I showed you, and then stamping on some fabric and using these book pages as the front of those. I've got a ton of fruit. I'm making like 200 of these, so using a couple different books for that. They will not all be the same, but I hope you guys are looking forward to seeing that. I'm very excited to be on her team for May. I think that is everything I have to say to you guys. Yes, so please, if you would like to buy one of these or receive one of these, go ahead and check for any open spots. Next month, I don't believe I've posted a reveal yet, but in April, the theme will be Little Mermaid and like ocean ships, a lot of really cool things coming for that month. So I will make sure to film a announcement video for that. I had forgotten, but I do have fabrics, really cool vintage books, with more ship stuff on the way. So look forward to that. If you've made it all the way to the end, you get an extra early sneak peek on that. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye.